we're going to bring on a former Kentucky State Representative from Louisville, Jim Wayne. And Jim Wayne, I'll be honest, I live in Lexington. I was not terribly familiar with Jim Wayne, but I then read an opinion piece in my newspaper that really stuck it to the Frankfurt and the redistricting process. And if you don't know much about gerrymandering, and we're going to get into it now, but you should know about it because it is inherently anti-democratic, and it is something that is looming right now because there's been the census has happened, and that count of people in our nation then is reflected in representation, and so that census will drive redrawing maps, political maps, and there's a few different facts about kind of what impact that could have. And unfortunately, this is the first time the Republicans have been in charge for a very long time, in like kind of modern history here in Kentucky. And so it could be bad. And so I want to bring on Representative Jim Wayne. Hello, Representative Wayne.
Hello, Aaron. It's good to be with you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. 28 years in the legislature. That is amazing. Did they give you a watch when you left? Like, how do they mark that?
They did give me a plaque, which I think is gathering dust somewhere. But but the real joy and real reward was to actually be there and serve my people.
That's wonderful. So, as you look back on the 28 years, what were some of the things you were most kind of proud of as a legislator?
Oh, there were a number of things. One is we established and got fully funded the Kentucky Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which addresses the serious crisis in our state of homelessness and people living in inadequate housing. So that has built probably about 15,000 units since we got that passed. And those units are built in part from this money, but also it's a collaborative effort. But it's a wonderful program that any nonprofit or local government can tap into when they want to build affordable housing for their citizens. The other thing we did was to pass the legislation on the campus safety for all of our universities and colleges in Kentucky after the death of a Murray State University student in 1999, when the university covered up the crime. He was killed when arsonists, people who were harassing him because of his differences, in the dormitory, they set his dormitory room on fire, and he died in the fire. His mother, who's a remarkable woman, helped shepherd that legislation through. So we demand now that under law, all the universities and colleges be totally transparent on all crimes on campus. So within 24 hours, everybody has to be alerted to everything. And we don't have campus hired security and campus hired fire people investigate crimes. They have to be investigated by outside entities. So that was major progress. There are a number of other items that we passed. The child sex abuse in light of the Catholic Church's sex abuse scandal. We passed legislation to tighten that. So anytime now you see a teacher being prosecuted for being involved with an 18-year-old student, that is because of that new law. So we really tightened that up. It needs to be tightened more, but we did major progress. And then I guess among the other things we did was help relocate 10,000 unwilling people surrounding the Louisville airport when they expanded the airport to make sure that UPS had its facility the way they wanted it. Corporate interests basically ruled that. And to the dismay of the 10,000 people living around the airport. So we were able to get millions and millions of dollars, federal and state, to help those people get relocated safely. Unfortunately, many of them died in the process of fighting for that money, literally died. And it was one by suicide, others by health issues that were spurred by the stress. It's a trail of tears in Louisville's history, how that was expanded. So there were a number of things like that we tried to address.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful legacy of just compassionate lawmaking and working to, actually serve the people who most need the help, which, well, that's a refreshing idea that was something that, people did. But you left not that long ago. It was 2019. What is what's your reflection on what you've seen out of this kind of Republican super duper majorities that are able to do kind of whatever the heck they want to do because of their amazing numbers?
It's tragic. It's really tragic because these people are so ideologically driven and driven also by fear of losing any power. And what you see now are people actually being hurt by the policies that are being enacted as law by these legislators. And some of the people I really admire as individuals, I worked with them, Republicans, I worked with them. I'm just so totally disappointed in how they've taken on these extreme right-wing issues and demonized anyone who wants to be compassionate, and demonized anyone who wants to speak up for the racial injustices in this state, demonize anyone who wants to put curbs on corporations, demonize anyone who wants to have a more progressive tax system. So it's really tragic. And if people in Kentucky aren't angry about this, they're not paying attention. And I hope that they really take their anger and channel it in the 2022 election and see to it that reasonable legislators, whether the Democrats or Republicans, we want reasonable, compassionate, truthful legislators in Frankfort. We don't want these hypocrites, these power-hungry, inadequate individuals who are spineless. And that's who is in control right now.
Yeah, that definitely seems true. As I've noted, looking at the legislation and what was done, what were their first bills, what were their priority bills, it seemed like they had, a two-part agenda when they showed up in Frankfort, which was one was to take power from the governor, and two, which was to give our taxes to corporations.
Yes.
It's like that was pretty much all they seemed to care about, and then set some things up so they could make their elections easier. But as I said, you gained my attention and my my appreciation when I read your op-ed entitled, and I know you don't write the headlines, maybe you did, but the headline was "Kentucky Republican Lawmakers Should Exorcise Satan from the Redistricting Process," and this was back in April. Tell me, what did you mean by that?
Well, the truth, I mentioned in the op-ed that there are two things that are really the most ugliest processes in Frankfort that I experienced in my nearly 3 decades there. One is when you have leadership races every 2 years, when people lie, cheat, and steal and horse trade all over the place to jockey into positions of power. The other is, whether that's Democrats or Republicans, and the other is redistricting. And what I saw, and I'm a Democrat, but when I saw my leaders basically maneuver the way they did and be as vindictive as they were toward the minority party, I was appalled. And so what we did in 2012 was to propose that we do what many other states, red and blue states, do, and that is set up a commission, an independent commission that would review the census data, and that with that information, they would draw up the lines for the districts. So there would not be partisanship, there would not be politics. They would be drawn up based on the geographic areas that would be contained and not gerrymandered, 100 miles here and 100 miles there with a yard wide link in between. But they would have compact districts, and they would also try to have districts that represent the communities. So for instance, if you have Pulaski County and you carve it up in 5-6 different House districts, that doesn't serve the people of Pulaski County. They don't have a single voice. They have fractionated voices. And so it's not good for that community. So what this commission would do would basically take the data. They would be objective in outlining the new districts. And those new districts would be presented to the legislature. The legislature could not amend them, but the legislature by constitution has to approve the redistricting plans. So that would be in statute. And this works in other states. And those other states where it does work, you don't see court challenges the way we've had in Kentucky for gerrymandered districts. So my hope is that this is something that would be taken seriously My fear is that it will be totally ignored by people who supported it in the past, including the Speaker of the House, David Osborne, who co-sponsored this legislation in 2012. Now, whether or not he will be looking at this at all, I'm doubtful. We have worked with the League of Women Voters. I met with them a number of years ago and said, plan for this for the next election, plan ahead. And they have been educating people around the state about really how unjust and in many ways criminal the process is right now. And what the Democrats did, the self-serving Democrats, and there are many good selfless Democrats, but the ones who were in power, who were self-centered and self-serving, that is who the Republicans seem to want to imitate right now. And that's tragic for the Commonwealth. And all this is done behind closed doors. So they draw up these maps without public hearings, without public input. It's all done with computers behind closed doors to say, hey, how can we get that one? And put that Democrat in with another Democrat, or in our case, that Republican in with another Democrat or another Republican. And it's really shameful of the way it's done in Kentucky. It's so primitive, it's so backward, and it's so unjust. So the hope is that we would have an enlightened legislature who would say, hey, let's take the politics out of this, set up an independent commission, see what they come up with. There is a model for this in Kentucky. When we had metro government first established in the early 2000s, we had a geographer from the University of Louisville who was given the task to draw up the new metro council districts. And that geographer drew them all up according to the interest of the different neighborhoods. And it was not political at all. And the metro council then endorsed that independent drawing up of the boundaries. And something similar needs to be done on the state level.
Hear, hear. You know, as I get older, I start paying more and more attention to redistricting and gerrymandering. But what I'm wondering is, you know, after spending 28 years in the House, was there ever a point that you noticed that your fellow Kentuckians were starting to get more interested in preventing it, or has the interest in that been sort of the same all along? You know,
I think the interest has been the same all along. Unfortunately, this is inside baseball for most citizens. They don't understand it. They don't know how it works, and so they're not going to take time from going to the grocery and picking up the kids at the daycare and coming home and doing laundry to pay attention to this. It's all done behind closed doors, and the leaders know this. They know they can get away with it, and they're also trading in the process. So if someone in essence needs to be bought off, they'll reward them with an extra precinct that's solidly going to support them. So it's a lot of horse trading that goes on to make sure that the people in power stay in power, and they make sure that the districts are drawn in such a way that they can maintain the majority so they can be the speaker or the president of the Senate and so forth. It's really tragic. And for programs like this that you all are providing, it is just wonderful. So people can be alerted to this and they can call their legislator. They can take their legislator out to breakfast and say, let me tell you, I got this idea that I've heard on this show or whatever, and we really want you to support it. Can you support that? And that's the kind of grassroots information that they need and grassroots action that they need to take when issues like this come up. This is going to affect us for the next 10 years. And if they redraw the 3rd congressional district, for instance, it's not just the state legislative districts, the Senate and the House in Frankfurt, but also they redraw the congressional district. If they draw it in such a way that they break up the city of Louisville, it's criminal, because the city of Louisville needs a congressperson who can go to Washington and speak for our total community. And when you break us up into 3 or 4 different legislative districts so that you can basically have total control by Republicans in Washington from our congressional delegation, that's not right. And people need to be really angry about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I just want to point out that we've got a graphic up right now that is, that's that map, right? It's 6 districts that are all Trump plus 15 that, no John Yarmouth in this scenario.
Right.
And and that is, it's frightening because clearly Louisville, deserves a representative that, represents Louisville. And I think we all deserve that. But Kimberly, anything you wanted to add here?
Yes, Representative Wayne, I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate you doing that op-ed and the work that you're continuing to do, even though you're not at the Capitol anymore. But do you have any thoughts of maybe jumping back in the ring again?
Well, Kimberly, you're very kind to even suggest it. But I really think, considering my age and my health, because I've had a battle with cancer 5 years ago, larynx cancer and Mayo Clinic, and the good Lord helped me through that. And the fact that I have 4 grandchildren to enjoy right now, I think I can write op-eds and maybe, not necessarily be in the middle of the circus, be outside the circus, but try to influence the acts in the circus.
You don't want to jump back into a Republican mega majority Frankfurt? That's crazy. Coward. No, I think absolutely understandable. I will say this. It's unfortunate when you lose voices, kind of good government voices like yourself, from that circus. Similarly, Joe Gravis, who was also kind of campaigning on this idea of the fair maps, was somebody who was outspoken about how important it was to move towards kind of nonpartisan redistricting, and then very unfortunately was not elected to that Senate seat that he was running for. His House seat then flipped to, so really just, it's tough times in Frankfurt right now. And, we need more kind of rational, informed voices to speak up. I am so glad you wrote your op-ed. I hope there are more coming. I don't know. Do you have a good sense of when redistricting will actually occur? Are we going to get it before 2022, or will we have a chance with the kind of current maps before they even get, heaven help us, worse? For the elections?
Well, you have to have the actual official data from the Census Bureau first, and then based on that, if you were to do a commission, you would not do it in 22. You would basically set up the commission in 22 and have them work during 22, and then come back in 23 and endorse the commission's work. But given the fact that they may want to try to flip the 3rd district and maybe flip some other House and Senate districts from Democrats to Republicans in 22 election, like Kimberly was talking about earlier, it could be that they will try to ramrod something through during the 60-day session coming up. So, assuming they have the actual official data from the Census Bureau.
Right. And that is a bit of a question mark, right? Because it's been a bit of a mess. I'm
well,
sure,
the census was kind of a mess this year, and, extended and so forth. So it's hard to say.
Like extended, but then cut short, like during a pandemic, seems like a challenging time to get a real count. Seems, and of course, the citizenship question that, the Trump administration was desperate to include there. It really does seem like we are not in the best situation in terms of quality data. But it is what it is. I guess we'll deal with it. Again, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. Any final thoughts you want to leave our viewers with?
Well, I think it's very important for people not to give up hope. These are dark times for people who really care about other people. It's really a dark time, but we have to be strong, and we have to be consistent in our message, and we have to basically care about each other as we're doing the work to change what's going on in Frankfurt and in Washington. Because the way you do something, the kindness that you bring to the task, is just important as the end result you're trying to achieve. And we need to be very strong and very determined in how we do it and what our end goals are, and never, ever give up.
That's so wonderful. Thank you. And I might just record that. Well, we will record it, but I might just replay that clip from time to time, because I think that's exactly right. But it can be a bit discouraging when you look at what's happening, at least with our representation in DC by and large, and the clown circus show in Frankfurt. I will say, kind of at the top of the ticket, we've got amazing leadership. Clearly, Governor Beshear you say what you will about him. He's a terribly compassionate individual and very much wants what's in the best interest of all of our state. He's had some very significant challenges thrown at him. I feel like he's risen to the occasion very well. Similar with Joe Biden, in Washington, D.C. Can't say he does not care about people and what they're going through. And I think that is, I hope that, Republican, Democrat, that is coming through in that leadership, that compassionate leadership that we are seeing in Frankfurt and in Washington, D.C., at least at the administration level, whatever the kind of shenanigans of Congress or, the General Assembly might lead you to conclude about politicians writ large.
I agree, Aaron. And I think we have to remember that Sigmund Freud once said, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And what he means by that is the caretakers, the loving care of parents with children, as children grow up, influence that person in their leadership roles. And we know that Andy Bashir had good parenting, and we're happy that his mother and his father did a good job with him.
Absolutely. And he seems like a great parent himself, for sure.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Enjoy the time with the grandkids. Good luck on your writing. I do hope you'll, show up on the opinion pages from time to time, because I do like your voice. I think your approach is wonderful. And that fact-based, reason-based, compassion-based message is something we all need to hear as frequently as possible. Thank you very much.
Very, very kind. My wife keeps nudging me. She'll say, it's about time for another one, right? So get in there at the computer. So you can help blame her. So.
We will thank her then. All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay. You all take care. It's good to be with you.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.